My name is Elena Ramos, and for a decade, I worked as a housekeeper for the Whitmore family. They lived in a mansion so vast and polished it could have been a museum. Marble floors that echoed when you walked barefoot, crystal chandeliers that looked like floating galaxies, and a kitchen that dwarfed my entire apartment back in my neighborhood. I scrubbed their floors, dusted their antiques, prepped their meals, and sometimes even tucked their kids into bed when their parents were too busy hosting galas or flying to Singapore for a weekend board meeting. I never complained, not once. I was thankful for the job. I sent money home to my family, kept my head down, and did what was expected of me. But there were days, quiet days, when I'd be polishing the grand staircase or setting out their morning lattes just right, when I wondered if they even saw me. Not the uniform or the tray I carried. Me, Elena, a daughter, a sister, a woman with a heart, a story, a soul. Then one morning, just as I was folding freshly laundered towels in the guest wing, my phone rang. It was my sister, Carmen. Her voice was trembling, thinner than I'd ever heard it. "Elena," she whispered, "Mommy's gone." I stood frozen, my hand clutching a soft white towel. My breath caught in my throat. It was like the world stopped turning. Our mother, Rosalina, had raised us by herself in a tiny yellow house that always smelled like rice and garlic. She worked as a seamstress until her fingers blistered just so I could finish school. When I got the job with the Whitmores, she packed my suitcase with a trembling smile and kissed my forehead 3 times like she always did when she was scared. She was my foundation, my compass. And now she was gone. I wiped my face, folded the last towel, and walked down the long hallway to the master bedroom. Mrs. Whitmore was sitting at her vanity, brushing on her signature plum lipstick, the same shade she wore to every event as if it were armor. Her silk robe draped loosely over her shoulders, and she didn't look up as I approached. "Ma'am," I said softly, my voice cracking. I need to go home. My mother passed away this morning. I need just 1 week to bury her in." She didn't even pause. Her reflection stared back at me in the mirror with the same cool detachment she reserved for waiters and Uber drivers. "Elena, the gala is this Saturday. You know how important this is. The house needs to be perfect." I swallowed hard. "Please, I'll come back right after. I just need a few days." Mr. Whitmore walked in then, adjusting his cufflinks like he was preparing for battle. He looked at me like I was asking for something unreasonable. "We'll give you a bonus," he said, "but we really can't have you leaving right now. You know how many eyes will be on us this weekend." I stood there, my hands trembling at my sides, every inch of me wanting to scream. But I didn't. I just thought of my mother's face, her tired eyes, her laugh, the last time she waved goodbye at the bus station. "I quit," I said, barely louder than a breath. Their heads snapped toward me. "What?" Mrs. Whitmore asked, blinking. "I quit," I repeated, this time with clarity. No amount of money is worth missing my mother's funeral. And I turned around. I didn't wait for them to react. I went to my small room in the basement, packed my things in silence, and walked out of that mansion for good. The morning of the funeral came just days later. The sky above our town was painted in heavy gray, the kind of clouds that feel personal, like the heavens themselves are mourning with you. The church was tiny, its white paint peeling, its pews creaky, but it overflowed with people. Neighbors, cousins, childhood friends. The scent of Sajida flowers filled the air, just like it used to cling to Mama's skirt after long days at the market. As they lowered her casket into the ground, I stood at the edge of the grave, clutching a small frame with her photo, one we took during my last visit home. Her eyes were squinting from laughter, her smile the same one that used to greet me at the door after school. "I'm sorry I wasn't there," I whispered, my voice barely holding. "I'm sorry I couldn't hold your hand, Mama." Carmen pulled me into her arms, and then Tia Lorna wrapped both of us in hers. "She knew you loved her," she murmured into my hair. "Always." But the guilt lodged itself in my chest like stone. When I returned to the city, my tiny apartment felt colder, lonelier. The silence was heavier without Mommy's nightly calls. I barely had time to unpack before my phone started buzzing. Dozens of texts, missed calls, and voicemails flooded my screen. "Elena, turn on the TV. Channel 5. Right now. Elena, it's everywhere. The Whitmores. You." I grabbed the remote with shaky fingers, heart pounding. The screen flickered, and there it was. Exclusive, billionaire family's callous treatment of longtime housekeeper goes viral. The segment opened with a news anchor, her tone tight, with restrained fury. Then came the audio, crisp, clear. Mrs. Whitmore's dismissiveness. Mr. Whitmore's cold bargaining. My voice, trembling, choking back tears. It was all there. Then came the video footage. A paparazzo had captured the Whitmores leaving their estate, ducking into a black SUV as reporters bombarded them with questions. Do you have any comment on the audio recording? Mrs. Whitmore's voice, sharp and dismissive. This is a private matter. The door slammed. The screen faded to the anchor, who said simply, sometimes the help are the only ones who remember to be human. I sat on my bed, remote slipping from my hands. 10 years of being invisible, dismissed, tolerated, but not valued. And now, in one twist of fate, their perfect reputation crumbled like old stone. All I ever wanted was to say goodbye. But the world saw me. Finally, weeks passed. I found new work, not in another mansion, but in a modest 2-story house owned by the Garcias. Mr. Garcia teaches high school math. Mrs. Garcia is a junior attorney at a community law firm. Their kitchen always smells like cinnamon and brewed coffee. They don't have drivers, or live-in chefs, or monthly galas. Just me. And yet, from the very first day, they treated me like someone who mattered. Every morning, Mrs. Garcia greets me with a genuine, "Good morning, Elena. Did you sleep okay?" Not out of obligation, out of care. When I cook, Mr. Garcia always looks me in the eye and says, "This is amazing. Thank you." And their daughter, little Sophia, runs to hug me every night before bed, giggling as her tiny arms wrap around my waist. At first, it was almost disorienting. This kindness, this seeing. I had become so used to being a shadow. One evening, as I folded laundry in the living room, Mrs. Garcia sat beside me. Her tone was soft, hesitant. "Elena," she said gently, "I came across the article, What Happened with Your Last Job. I just want you to know, you'll always have time here. For anything. No questions asked." I blinked, throat thick. That night, before bed, I pulled out the same photo of Mama, the one I carried since the funeral, and sat with it in my hands. Her smile had faded slightly over time, the colors dulled, but her eyes still sparkled the way I remembered. "I hope I made you proud, Mama," I whispered. "I finally found people who treat me like I matter." As for the Whitmores, well, their gala was a disaster. Their guests bailed. Their names trended for all the wrong reasons. Charity boards distanced themselves. The media tore into them for weeks. And slowly, quietly, their empire of curated perfection began to crumble. I don't take pleasure in their downfall, but I do sleep easier. Because for the first time, the world saw what I'd buried for years. My mother's love, my own worth. They were louder than the silence. Because the truth, it never disappears. It waits. And when it speaks, the whole world listens.